Hi, this is Melissa Spencer, and this week I'm doing one of the presentations on Sesame Street. The missions of Sesame Street is to help kids grow smarter, stronger, and kinder. The Children's Television Workshop was founded in 1968 by Joan Gons Cooney and Lloyd Morissette, with the mission to help educate small children. The original funding included $8 million from the Carnegie Corporation, the U.S. government's Office of Education, the Ford Foundation, and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Jim Henson was recruited to help collaborate with the CTW to create the warm and fuzzy monsters that we all know and love today. Sesame Street first aired in November of 1969 on PBS, where they remained for decades. In 1970, between 28 and 36% of kids from 2 to 5 were watching. In 1971, that viewership increased to between 33 and 42%. But with cable in the 1980s and 90s, and then the digital age that was ushered in the 2000s, began to all take a toll on Sesame Street. In 2014, Jeff Dunn was hired to help do an evaluation of the company and give some feedback by the then CEO. In September of 2014, he became the 5th CEO of Sesame Street. First, we were asked to identify signs that the Sesame Street Workshop was in a losing streak prior to Dunn's arrival as a CEO. In 2009, there was a layoff of 60 employees. In 2012, total revenue of the fiscal year for 12 was down by 15%. Their operating loss had been more than doubled to $24 million. In 2013, they had a layoff of 10% of the staff. They were running between a $15 to $18 million deficit just from the show alone. The revenues declined by 22% between 2011 and 2014. In 2013 and 14, several of their seasoned creative people left the show. In 2014, they only had 1 year's worth of costs in reserve. Between 2012 and 2015, the revenues plunged to nearly a quarter from 121 million to 93 million. In 2016, they were losing 70% of their DVD revenue and 50% of their overall licensing revenue since 2006. The decline in revenues from distribution fees and royalties licensing were starting to decline. In 2007, the distribution fees and royalties were $43 million and the licensing of $52 million. In 2015, that number of the distribution fees and royalties had almost gone in half to $27 million, and the licensing was down by at least $20 million to $37 million. What were Dunn's first moves to try and get Sesame Street winning again? One of the first things he did was reach out to the executives prior to him even beginning at the company to get feedback, to find out what they thought was wrong, what needed to be changed, and other things. In his first week, he had meetings with all of the execs, the operating teams, the employees. He visited the production and the studio. He held an all-staff meeting and he had a reception. He was very hands-on and hit the ground running. He brought in several new leaders from outside the company, from for-profit corporations. Within the first 6 months, he reorganized into 2 broad business units. And within the first year, he had entered into the HBO deal. Were these moves successful? In 2017, the company had an operating profit of $6.7 million on a revenue of $118 million. The HBO deal was estimated to cover most of the show's production costs. The work environment had changed. teamwork and collaboration began to happen. There was an improved communication between the employees and the company. In the fall of 2016, the audience on PBS was growing despite PBS's declining ratings. What aspects have been at the core of Sesame Street Workshop's historical identify? They were focused on one thing, their mission and passion for education. They were not focused enough on money. When they were faced with competition, they decreased investments in schools and in a number of new projects that focused solely on Sesame Street television show only. They were too tied to the past and unwilling to take risks. For years, the employees operated in their own silos and did not work together, but were always quick to point fingers at others when things went wrong. There was a lack of leadership and decision-making. What moves did Dunn make to alter it, and to what extent was he successful? Dunn simplified their mission statement and has been very successful in continuing with Sesame Street's original mission. The HBO deal helped solve some capital issues by providing money to cover a majority of the production costs for the show, but it also continued to air on PBS to stay with the company's support of public television and where they'd begun. He focused on the understanding that the nonprofit world was really the same as the for-profit world, and then they needed to play by the same rules in order to stay viable, and they had to look for alternative sources of funding. He started the Sesame Street Ventures to work with startups to help coordinate to develop early childhood education, technology, formed partnerships with Teachstone that offered teachers online professional development services and training, increased awareness that would help increase consumer awareness of Sesame Street's nonprofit status and open new doors to partnerships. He worked with IBM to create interactive learning products. And Dunn stressed collaboration and communication and sought to eliminate excessive deliberation and helped improve leadership skills. Sesame Street has an outstanding history and a great concept. They're a television icon that has spanned a number of generations. Over the years, Sesame Street had a number of issues. There was not enough funding to sustain them. Public television limited their capabilities to earn revenue early on. In the 80s and 90s, they were able to license their product and raise additional revenues through that. But in the 2000s, some of their revenue sources, such as DVDs, began to dry up. There was a culture shift, and people began to look to other places for their kids' programming and education. Kids and adults alike began to process things differently, and attention spans changed. This mixed with a loss of revenue and continuing increase in costs became an issue. When Dunn started, he recognized that the company had not moved into the digital era very well. The most important thing that he found was the nonprofit world was run the same as the for-profit world because they all needed money to survive. He started to explore how they could make money to continue to operate. Although problems that he faced were also included a very divided company. There were too many fractions and people not working together, and a split between the old ways and the new ways. He began to break down the barriers so that people learned to work together and work through things. Lastly, he saw the identity of the company as one that focused on education and philanthropy, and he continued that mission. He also increased their philanthropic outreach. The struggle is not over, but they're going to continue to fight. As a side note, I know all too well the lives that Sesame Street touches. My 2-year-old twin nieces had a Cookie Monster and Elmo birthday party last summer. And we're going to see Sesame Street live this spring right here at RMU. Here are my references. Thank you.